Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you've been with us this week, you know we've spent a lot of time really mapping out this landscape of the demographic situation. Things like the economic traps, stopping family formation, the whole messaging flip over decades, and yeah, the way individuals often get blamed for what are actually systemic
Oh,
failures.
gaslighting aspect, yeah.
Exactly. But today, we're kind of cutting through all that. We want to analyze the proof of intent.
Mm.
So here's the mission. We know, globally, what policies actually work to boost birth rates, or at least, seriously slow the decline.
We have the blueprint.
We do. And we know these things are often affordable, sometimes even profitable for the economy. Yet governments claiming this is a huge crisis,
Yeah.
they just aren't doing them.
Right, they're sidelined, rejected.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If they really think disaster's looming, why refuse the life raft? What does this refusal, this policy choice, tell us about their real priorities versus what they, say on TV?
This is absolutely the crucial point, I think. We're moving past the talk and into the actual evidence. And this isn't some theory from decades ago. This is 2025 knowledge.
Right.
We have global case studies, hard data showing what makes a difference. And when you see that path, that documented success.
And you choose not to take it.
Exactly. That choice, that inaction, that's the data point. It sends a really powerful signal.
Okay, so let's lay out this blueprint. What are these non-negotiable policies we see in the places that are actually doing okay, relatively speaking? The ones keeping birth rates higher, maybe pushing towards 1.8.
Well, it really boils down to, I'd say, three main categories. And they all treat raising kids as a public good, something society invests in, not just a private struggle.
And you use the word investment there.
Definitely, because
Yeah.
the evidence often points to a positive return. This isn't just spending, it can actually grow the economy.
Right, let's start with the big one for working parents. Childcare. What works?
Okay, category one, universal subsidized childcare. And I mean really subsidized. High quality care that's basically free or very, very low cost, right from infancy.
So not like a small tax credit you might get way down the line.
No, not helpful enough. We're talking about actual affordable daycare spots when you need them.
And the prime example people always point to is Quebec.
Quebec is, well, it's the classic example. They brought in this system back in '97, I think.
Right, the really low-cost one.
Yeah, something like $8.50 a day. And the result, birth rate jumped from 1.4 up to 1.7 within about 10 years. That's a significant demographic shift.
Wow.
But here's the kicker, the part that policymakers just seem to ignore sometimes. Multiple studies, economic studies, showed this massive positive ROI.
Wait, positive? Like it made money for the government?
Exactly. For every single dollar Quebec put into that system, the economy gained back somewhere between, what, $1.17 and $2.30.
Okay, hold on. If it literally pays for itself, maybe even doubles the investment, how can anyone argue we can't afford it? That just doesn't track, it sounds like refusing free money.
It's the go-to deflection, isn't it? We'll get more into that affordability myth later, but the numbers are there. And look at France, too. Highest birth rate in Europe, around 1.8. Why? Well, a big part is heavily subsidized care. Their École maternelle system makes preschool functionally free from age 3.
So they've just accepted that the state has a role in helping raise the next generation.
They see it as fundamental to their society and economy.
Okay, childcare helps with the cost. But what about time? Parents need time, especially right after birth.
That's category 2, meaningful paid parental leave. And meaningful is key here. Generous leave, paid, and crucially designed for both parents.
Not just, say, 6 unpaid weeks for the mother.
Definitely not. Look at Sweden, 480 days. That's what, 16 months?
Wow.
At 80% pay. And some of that is specifically use it or lose it for the father.
Ah, so that encourages dads to actually take the time. Shifts the culture.
It does. Or Estonia, they went even further. 18 months leave at full pay. 100% salary.
18 months, fully paid.
Yep. And guess what? Birth rate climbed from 1.5 to 1.8. And interestingly, women's employment rates actually went up long term.
How?
Because their jobs were protected. They knew they could take the leave and come back securely.
Okay, hearing that really throws the U.S. situation into sharp relief. The U.S. is the only developed nation with 0 mandated national paid leave.
0. It's astounding.
Families just have to hope their employer offers something. Or use vacation time, maybe short-term disability.
Huh?
It's a patchwork at best.
It's a massive barrier, especially right at the beginning. And for lower-income families, it's often just impossible. Which leads us to the third category.
Which is?
Category 3, direct cash payments and health care. We're talking actual money in people's pockets monthly. not a complicated tax form next year.
Like a child allowance.
Exactly. Canada does this with their Canada Child Benefit. It can be up to $600 Canadian a month per child. Huge impact on child poverty.
And Hungary's been very aggressive with this too, haven't they?
Extremely. Huge tax breaks,
Yeah.
loan forgiveness if you have more kids. They've really pushed direct financial incentives, and their rate has climbed from about 1.2 to 1.6. They see it as vital.
And, we actually saw this work right here in the U.S. briefly, the 2021 child tax credit expansion.
Absolutely. That temporary expansion, making it a monthly payment, the data was crystal clear.
What did it show?
It cut child poverty by nearly 50%. In 1 year, 50%.
That's staggering. A proven success.
Proven, successful, popular even. And what happened?
It was allowed to expire. Just gone.
Politically abandoned. That decision speaks volumes.
And when you put that next to the absolutely bonkers cost of just having a baby in the U.S.
The healthcare piece.
Average cost, what, $10,000 to $30,000 for a normal birth?
Compared to basically zero or maybe a few $100s in places like the UK, Canada, France.
It creates this unique American barrier. It's not just, can we afford childcare? It's, can we even afford the birth itself without going into massive debt?
It's a financial threat that actively discourages family planning for many.
Okay, so the blueprint exists, the policies work, we have ROI data showing they can pay for themselves. And yet,
the constant refrain is, we can't afford it, especially in the U.S. Too expensive. Socialist pipe dreams.
right, so let's tackle that head on. Is it truly unaffordable?
The claim of unaffordability, when you look at the actual numbers, it feels like, well, a deliberate misdirection. It's about choices, about where the money goes, not about a genuine lack of resources.
Okay, let's see the comparison. Put it in perspective.
Right, so estimates for a really good universal childcare system in the U.S., maybe $100 billion, $150 billion a year. Sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah, that's a big number.
Until you put it next to, say, the U.S. defense budget, which is currently over $850 billion annually. Or compare it to the 2017 tax cuts, mainly benefiting corporations and the wealthy. Those cost about $1.5 trillion over 10 years. So roughly $150 billion a year right there.
Okay, but I can hear the pushback already. People will say, you can't compare defense spending that's essential for national security to childcare, which is social spending. Isn't that mixing apples and oranges?
That's the exact framing that reveals the underlying priorities, isn't it? Think about when things become essential or mandatory.
What do you mean?
When the financial sector needed a bailout in 2008, trillions appeared almost overnight. Was there a big debate about affordability then?
Not really, no. It was presented as necessary to prevent collapse.
Right. When the military needs more funding, hundreds of billions are found, often with bipartisan support. But when families need support, families who are, let's not forget, the foundation of the future economy and tax base, suddenly $100 billion is an impossible fiscal cliff.
So the affordability argument is selectively applied.
It seems that way. It's a constraint invoked for social programs, but rarely for military spending or corporate subsidies. The comparison isn't about the type of spending, it's about the ease and priority given to allocating funds. That tells you what's truly valued.
And looking internationally reinforces this.
Absolutely. France manages comprehensive family policies with a GDP per capita around $45,000. The U.S. GDP per capita is, what, $70,000? Much higher.
So if France can figure it out,
Then the wealthiest nation on Earth certainly has the capacity. It's not about can we afford it, it's about do we choose to afford it. The revealed preference through actual budget decisions consistently puts military and corporate interests ahead of family support.
okay, this leads to a pretty uncomfortable place. If the government isn't prioritizing the public good here, despite the claimed crisis, whose interests are being served by maintaining these barriers to family formation? Who actually benefits from this scarcity?
Well, what's fascinating and maybe disturbing is that you can pretty clearly identify industries that profit directly, often massively, from the current system. The system that makes having and raising kids so difficult and expensive.
Let's start with maybe the biggest weight on younger generations.
Yeah.
Debt.
Right. That points directly to the financial sector. Banks, lenders, credit card companies, asset managers, they thrive when people are indebted.
And the scale is just enormous.
Think about it. $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. Over $1 trillion in credit card debt. Massive profits from mortgages on inflated housing. all generating interest income for banks.
So their entire business model, in many ways, relies on people needing to borrow large sums just to live, get educated, or buy a home.
Precisely, which means they have a powerful financial incentive to oppose policies that would reduce that reliance on debt.
Like it.
Affordable college, that shrinks the student loan market. Affordable housing, smaller mortgages mean less interest income. Living wages, people rely less on high-interest credit cards. It's a direct threat to their profits.
And they spend billions lobbying to protect that model.
Exactly. Keep debt the norm.
Okay, what about housing itself? You mentioned inflated housing.
The housing crisis feels very much engineered by policy choices. Restrictive zoning laws that prevent building enough family-friendly housing.
Like banning duplexes or small apartment buildings in huge areas.
Right. Mortgage rules that increasingly favor big investors buying up properties over regular families. Tax policies that encourage speculation, treating homes like stocks rather than places to live.
And who profits from that scarcity?
Real estate investors, large corporate landlords who can charge high rents, and again, the banks financing it all at inflated values. They benefit when prices are high and supply is tight. They lobby against policies that would make housing more affordable. And then there are the industries directly involved in the costs we discussed earlier, healthcare and childcare.
How do they fit in?
Well, the healthcare industry, insurers, hospitals, pharma, they profit significantly from the current high-cost system. That $10,000 to $30,000 cost for childbirth, that's revenue for them.
So universal health care, which would drastically lower or eliminate that cost, is a threat to their bottom line.
A major threat. And here's a really ironic one. The private childcare industry.
Wait, the childcare providers?
Yeah.
How do they oppose affordable childcare?
The large for-profit childcare chains often lobby against universal, publicly subsidized childcare. Why?
Because it would compete with their high prices.
Exactly. If there's widely available, high-quality public care for very cheap, it undermines their ability to charge $15,000, $20,000, even $25,000 a year per child. It would crush their profit margins.
Wow. So the pattern seems undeniable. You have major industries whose profits depend, directly or indirectly, on maintaining the financial barriers that make it hard for people to have and raise children.
Yes. And these industries spend vast sums on lobbying and campaign contributions to influence policy and make sure those barriers stay firmly in place.
It sounds like a classic case of regulatory capture, where policy ends up serving powerful industry interests instead of the broader public good, an economy almost built on exploiting the financial struggles of families. Looking at that picture, powerful industries actively working to maintain expensive barriers, it's easy to feel, well, pretty cynical or even defeated, like change isn't possible.
It's definitely a formidable challenge, but it's crucial to remember that policy can change, even against entrenched interests. History shows us that. Think about the New Deal or the Civil Rights Movement.
Huge societal shifts driven by public pressure.
Exactly. Sustained pressure, organizing, building coalitions. It can overcome inertia and opposition. And sometimes windows of opportunity open unexpectedly.
Like the child tax credit expansion we talked about.
That's a perfect recent example. Even though it was temporary, it proved the policy worked. It cut poverty dramatically. It was popular. That creates a blueprint, a political argument ready to go when the conditions are right again.
And you argue that one major factor will force those conditions to change, regardless of political will.
I think so, yes. And that's the acceleration of automation.
Artificial intelligence, robotics, replacing jobs.
Right. The projections are stark. Some credible sources suggest 40%, 50%, even 60% of current jobs, especially knowledge work and service jobs, could be automated within the next, say, 15, 20 years. By 2035, 2040.
If that happens, the entire economic system breaks down.
It fundamentally changes. If potentially half the population doesn't have a traditional job or income stream, the current model based on wages, debt, paying for everything individually simply collapses.
Society would have to respond somehow.
It faces a stark choice, either mass unemployment, instability, maybe social collapse, or a completely new policy framework. Things like universal basic income or comprehensive social safety nets become not just options but necessities.
And if something like UBI happens,
Then suddenly the core economic barriers to family formation, the sheer cost of survival and raising children could be significantly lessened or even removed. The money problems we've been discussing might become, well, less relevant if basic needs are met universally.
so change is coming one way or another, either through political action now or forced by technological and economic disruption later.
That's how it looks. The current system, propped up by lobbying from sectors benefiting from scarcity, is likely unsustainable in the face of mass automation and continued demographic decline. It will have to adapt, perhaps radically. Necessity will force the issue.
So for you listening, understanding this dynamic, who benefits now, why policies are blocked, and the disruptive forces on the horizon, it isn't about being cynical, it's about strategy.
Right. Knowing why the proven solutions are resisted is the first step in figuring out how to overcome that resistance. Hashtag tag outro.
So we've laid out the proof of intent, haven't we? When a government, or really the system it represents, acknowledges a crisis like demographic decline, but then consistently rejects the known, affordable, proven solutions used successfully elsewhere, what conclusion can you draw?
You have to conclude that the stated concern, the public rhetoric about the crisis, isn't the actual driving priority. The actions, or lack thereof, reveal the true intent.
And we've seen today how powerful financial interests benefit from maintaining the status quo, the very conditions that suppress birth rates.
Which leads us right to the really tough question we need to tackle next time. Given this deliberate inaction, this paralysis seemingly caused by these competing interests, is population decline just an unfortunate side effect they're willing to tolerate?
Yeah.
Or could it be that lower fertility rates, maybe even population decline itself, is actually beneficial to certain powerful groups? Is it, in some sense, the quiet, unstated goal?
That's a heavy question.
It is, but it's where the evidence seems to point us. So here's the final thought for you to chew on until next time. Change is coming. It's inevitable. Either we organize and force reforms now, based on the solutions we know work.
Or change will be forced upon us by the sheer weight of automation and demographic shifts, potentially in a much more chaotic way.
Exactly. And understanding who profits from today's system, who's blocking the solutions, that knowledge is your power, it's the key to shaping what kind of change we ultimately get.
Think about that pattern. Think about who benefits. And join us tomorrow as we dive into that final, deeply uncomfortable question. See you then.